I used to think silence was peaceful. Now, it's just loud. The kind of loud that hums through the walls when the house is too clean, too still, like the whole place is holding its breath. That's what it feels like when Joel's away. And the truth is, he's almost always away. He left again this morning. 3 weeks this time, some supply chain summit in London, followed by a pit stop in Hong Kong for a partnership dinner he didn't even try to explain. I didn't ask questions. I just stood by the front door with my arms folded, nodding as he rattled off flight times and layovers. He kissed my cheek, like he always does, quick, polite, barely touching skin, and then he was gone. That was 12 hours ago. And here I am, standing in a kitchen that smells like lemon cleaner and feels colder than it should. I made dinner, set 2 places out of habit, then scraped his untouched food into the garbage before I even sat down. I do that sometimes. Set a plate like he might walk in and surprise me. But he never does. We live in Hazel Ridge, right off the lake. The kind of neighborhood where the lawns look painted and the mailboxes match. Our home is beautiful, really. High ceilings, big windows, a fireplace I decorate with the seasons. From the outside, everything looks picture perfect. But inside? Inside, it's quiet. Not the good kind. The kind that sneaks into your skin and stays there. Joel and I have been married for 23 years. And lately, it feels like I've spent most of them in some kind of waiting room. Waiting for him to come back. Waiting for the spark to return. Waiting for someone to notice I'm still here. We don't fight. We don't really talk either. We say things like, "Did you pay the bill?" or "Don't forget the dry cleaning." Conversations built on reminders. It's been years since he asked how I was really doing, and even longer since I believed he cared about the answer. Passion? That faded somewhere between airport terminals and boardroom deals. I can't even remember the last time we held hands. Sometimes I wonder if he even sees me anymore. Or if I've just become another piece of the house, always here, always neat, always quiet. I've gotten used to performing. Smiling at the neighbors, organizing pantry shelves, pretending I don't notice the wine glass in my hand is always full by 8 p.m. But the truth? I'm lonely in a way I didn't know was possible. Not the kind you feel when someone's gone, but the kind that wraps around you when they're sitting right there and you still feel like a stranger. Tonight, I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed. A message from Cannon, Joel's son from his first marriage. "Dad said you wouldn't mind if I stayed with you while he's out. I'll be back for spring break." I stared at the message longer than I should have. Cannon's a good kid, well, not really a kid anymore. 22 now. College senior. He used to spend summers with us before he got busy with his own life. I haven't seen him in over a year. I typed back, "Of course, that's fine," and hit send. That's how it always is. I say yes. I smile. I make space. The thing is, I used to count the days until Joel came home. Now? I barely notice when he leaves. Cannon arrived on a Wednesday afternoon, suitcase in hand and a smile that was too big for someone returning to a place so quiet. He'd grown broader since I last saw him. His shoulders squared off like he carried the world now, but his eyes, those same soft, slate blue eyes he had at 12, still held that calm curiosity. I hugged him, a quick, friendly squeeze that felt both familiar and strange. He smelled like cedar and soap. His voice was deeper. His posture is different. And when he looked at me, it wasn't like a boy visiting home. "Place looks the same," he said, walking through the front hallway. "Smells like you." I laughed. "Lemon and laundry detergent?" "No. I don't know. Just, you," he said, setting down his bag like he'd never left. We slipped into routine without talking about it. That night, he offered to help make dinner, something simple, chicken and rosemary potatoes. We moved around the kitchen like dance partners who didn't need to speak. He chopped vegetables. I prepped the stove. Every so often, I'd catch him watching me, not staring, just paying attention. You still hum when you stir, he said as I stood over the pot. I paused, suddenly aware of my own hands. I didn't realize I did that. He smiled. You always have. After dinner, we watched one of those true crime shows he used to binge in high school. The living room was dim, except for the blue flicker of the screen. I sat at one end of the couch, legs tucked under me. He sat on the other, arms folded, quiet. Somewhere between the second and third episode, he said, "You look peaceful here." I turned to look at him. Peaceful? Yeah, he said, tilting his head. Like, you're in your element. You've got this calm energy. I've always liked that about you. I didn't know how to respond. It was such a small thing. A passing compliment. But the way he said it, it wasn't casual. The next morning, he made coffee before I came downstairs. He'd never done that before. Joel never even knew where we kept the filters. Thought I'd beat you to it, he said, pouring me a cup. I thanked him, trying not to read into it. But it kept happening. Little things. His hand brushing mine when we passed in the hallway. The way he lingered in the kitchen even after dinner was done. How he offered to do the dishes, then dried every plate so slowly I started wondering if he was stalling. We went for a walk that Saturday, something we used to do years ago when he was still in high school. The lake was calm, smooth as glass, and the trees hadn't fully bloomed yet. The air smelled like spring trying to make up its mind. Cannon walked beside me, hands in his coat pockets. You still walk this trail a lot? Not as much lately, I said. It's not the same alone. He looked at me, just for a second. You shouldn't have to do things alone all the time. That stuck with me. He didn't say it with pity. Just truth. Later that night, I stood by the window while the kettle boiled, and he walked in quietly behind me. You always stand there when it's late, he said. Waiting on someone? I smiled faintly. Joel usually calls around this time. Cannon looked down at his watch. He hasn't called all week. I didn't answer. The silence stretched, thick but not uncomfortable. And I realized, he was right. Joel hadn't called. Not once. Not even a quick text. And I'd still been waiting. After Cannon went up to bed, I stayed by the window a little longer, watching the porch light flicker in the distance. The air felt heavier than usual, like the house was aware something was shifting, even if I couldn't name it. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. And I didn't know whether that made me alive, or in danger. The rain started just after 7, quiet at first, tapping against the windows like it was asking permission to come in. By 8, it had turned into a full storm. Wind howling, trees shaking, thunder rolling through the walls like something was trying to crawl its way inside. I had just lit the last candle on the mantel when the power cut out. Everything blinked into blackness. The microwave. The stove. The TV. Silence came next, followed by the loudness of a house stripped of sound. Then came the crash. Something big, a tree, maybe, fell behind the shed. I felt it in my chest. The deep thud of wood breaking apart. I stood there frozen for a moment, listening, waiting. Cannon came downstairs with a flashlight. He handed it to me without saying a word and disappeared into the kitchen. A few minutes later, he returned with 2 wine glasses and a half-finished bottle of red I'd opened days ago but never touched. He didn't ask. Just handed me a glass, then sat down on the far end of the couch like we were about to wait out the storm together. The candlelight softened the room. Shadows danced across the walls. The rain kept pushing against the house like it wanted to. I sipped my wine. He sipped his. And then, we talked. Not small talk. Not weather or schedules or college or flights. Real talk. I used to dance, I said, staring at the flame flickering between us. Not professionally or anything. But every weekend back when Joel and I first got together. I'd dance in the living room with the windows open. Didn't care who saw. Cannon leaned in, elbows on knees. What happened? I shrugged. I stopped feeling like myself. And somewhere along the way, it just didn't make sense to keep pretending. He was quiet. Then, did he ask you to stop? No, I said. That would have required him noticing. I laughed after I said it. Not because it was funny, just because the truth always comes out sharper when it's said out loud. I used to want to be a writer, I added. Travel. Try street food in Morocco. Swim in Greece. But then life happened. Bills. Mortgage. His job. I became the dependable one. The good wife. Cannon looked at me in a way that felt different than before, gentler, but more certain. He doesn't deserve you. I shook my head, tried to laugh again. Don't say that. You know it's true. And for a second, I didn't know if I was angry or relieved. My eyes started to burn, and I looked down at the wine swirling in my glass. Please don't make this something it shouldn't be. I'm not, he said. I'm just telling you what I see. And then he reached out. His hand grazed mine, not forceful. Not greedy. Just grounding. It made my breath hitch. Not because it was wrong, but because it felt too honest. I shouldn't, I whispered. You haven't done anything. He held my gaze, and for the first time, I realized how long it had been since someone looked at me like that, not through me, not past me, but at me. I pulled my hand away slowly. This feels wrong. Cannon didn't flinch. He didn't beg or apologize. He just said it, soft, steady, like he'd been holding it for days. You know, I'd only asked to come back because I knew he wouldn't be here. I wanted time with you, not him. The room spun. I stared at him, unsure if I'd heard right. My heart wasn't just racing, it was unraveling. And then, of course, my phone lit up on the counter. Joel. I didn't move. Let it ring. Let the name flicker in the dark like it was someone else's husband, someone else's life. Cannon stood up and left the room. Didn't say a word. Just left. And the quiet that followed didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt like something had cracked open and spilled across the floor, like broken glass waiting to be stepped on. I sat there for a long time. Staring at the candle. Staring at the wine. Not because I wanted more. But because I didn't know what I'd already lost. I thought I was the one slipping. But the real betrayal wasn't in the kiss we never shared. It was in the way he planned to make me fall. The house smelled like coffee and wet soil the next morning, like it couldn't decide whether to wake up or stay buried. I walked into the kitchen barefoot, arms crossed, sweater slipping off one shoulder. Cannon was already there, seated at the table with the newspaper open like he belonged to this rhythm. He didn't look up when I walked in. I didn't say good morning. We moved around each other carefully. Quietly. Like two people tiptoeing through broken glass, pretending they weren't bleeding. The air between us was thick. Not angry. Not warm either. Just full. He poured me coffee without asking. I took it without a word. When our hands brushed for a split second, his thumb against the side of mine, I froze. Not because it hurt. Because it didn't. I sat across from him. Stirred my coffee even though I drink it black. Anything to keep my hands busy. We didn't talk about last night. Not the wine. Not the candlelight. Not the way I'd looked at him like he held the only match to light the part of me I thought had long since gone cold. He folded the newspaper and leaned back. Still not looking at me, but not avoiding me either. You were honest with me, he said, voice low. In ways you've never been with him. A pause. That means something. I looked up. Not at him, past him. At the window. At the lake still under gray skies. I didn't respond. Because I didn't know what I believed anymore. Whether it meant something, or everything, or absolutely nothing. My hands trembled slightly as I brought the mug to my lips. I don't think he noticed. Or maybe he did and didn't care. When he stood and left the room, I sat alone for a while, staring at the chair he'd just vacated like it held all the answers I didn't want to hear. I spent the rest of the day in silence. Pulled out old wedding albums from the linen closet. Sat on the rug in the guest bedroom flipping through photos of me and Joel on beaches, at dinner parties, on front porches we used to dream about owning. My face was fuller back then. My eyes widened. I opened one of my old journals. The entries were short. Grocery lists. Appointments. Birthday reminders. Nothing about who I used to be. Just who I tried to be for everyone else. I thought about calling Joel. Even dialed his number. Watched the screen light up with his name. Then I hit end. What would I even say? That I let his son fill a space he never saw? That I wasn't looking to betray him, but found myself starving for someone to look at me and see me? No. I couldn't explain it. And worse, I wasn't sure I wanted to. That night, I locked my bedroom door. First time I'd done that in years. Not because I thought Cannon would come in. Because I wasn't sure what I would do if he did. But he never knocked. He never even passed the hallway. And still, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling for hours, heart pounding, body still, shame crawling under my skin like it belonged there. I thought I'd feel powerful. Reclaimed. But all I felt was cracked. Like someone had tapped the glass just hard enough to split it. The bond was broken, but the shame clung like fog. I thought being wanted again would heal me. But now I couldn't tell where the hunger ended, and the hollowness began. He left 2 days earlier than planned. No goodbye. No knock on the door. No suitcase rolling across the hardwood floors. Just a folded note on the kitchen counter, wedged under my coffee mug. I meant what I said. But maybe you needed more than I thought you did. I read it once. Twice. Then I folded it again, tucked it into the back of the junk drawer under rubber bands and expired coupons. Not because I wanted to keep it. Because I wasn't ready to throw it away just yet. Joel came home that same evening. He walked through the door in his usual rhythm, coat over one arm, phone to his ear, voice low and clipped as he wrapped up some deal with someone I'd never met. When he saw me, he smiled. Kissed my cheek. Same as always. He brought flowers. White lilies. My favorite, apparently, though I never once told him that. He also brought back kitchenware from Tokyo, some artisan knives he said the chef at the hotel swore by. He talked about delays in customs and a champagne tasting in Paris that ran late. He talked and talked. I listened. Smiled. Served dinner. And somewhere between the roasted carrots and the second refill of his wine, I realized something. I wasn't angry. I wasn't waiting anymore. I didn't check my phone when he stepped away. I didn't watch the clock. Didn't hold my breath for a thank you. Because something inside me had shifted. Quietly. Finally. The next morning, I stood by the window out of habit, then turned away. I brewed my coffee and let the silence be just silence. That weekend, I signed up for a modern dance class. First one I've taken since I was 27. The instructor was younger than me. Brighter, bolder. But when I moved, clumsily, cautiously, I remembered something that had nothing to do with Cannon or Joel. I remembered me. Later that afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone in hand. I pulled up Cannon's number. Looked at it for a while. Not to text. Not to replay. Just to feel what it felt like to let go. Then I hit delete. Not out of spite. But because it was time. That evening, I walked barefoot down to the lake. The sun had dipped just enough to turn the sky a soft gray pink. I brought my journal, the one I hadn't touched in years except to scribble to-do lists, and this time, I wrote something different. Not about anyone else. Not about what was missing. Just a few lines about the air. The light. The way the water moved like it didn't care who was watching. I sat there for a while. Still. Not waiting for anyone. Just breathing. The deepest betrayal isn't in a touch or a lie, it's when someone sees your emptiness and uses it to feel powerful. But I'm no longer afraid of being alone. Because now, at least, I'm with myself. Have you ever trusted someone, only to realize they saw your pain as opportunity? If this story hits close, share your truth below. And if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from silence, like, share, and subscribe. You're not alone.